Though a few Europeans had ventured into the region as early as the late 1800s, the red Chris mineral claim on Mount Tottigan wasn't staked until the mid-1950s. What the early miners found was a bluff on the north side of the mountain that was low-grade copper but high volume, meaning you had to move a lot of mountain for a little pure ore.
I've often thought that if all of us were more directly responsible for the impacts we have in the natural world, I mean, this gold wedding ring, which I sort of wear happily as a symbol of the love I have for my wife, if I didn't have this ring, I would still love my wife. And to produce this one bit of gold took roughly 30 tons of rock torn from the earth. Now, if I had to live with those 30 tons in my backyard and the toxic tailings associated with production of this little bit of gold, you know, in the bedroom of my child, I might think twice before buying a gold ring. And I think if we thought in those terms, we would begin to be more aware and sensitive to what the impacts that our lives have on the planet.
But early assays of the red Chris claim indicated marginal copper, and it was a long way from markets. Titles to mineral rights changed hands with the regularity of a stone sheep shedding its winter coat. But as drill programs probed deeper into the strata, they profiled a pocket of high-grade silver and gold far below. One company, American Bullion, explored the possibility of tunneling to the high grade versus an open pit, and concluded that the cost return was near equal. The trade-off was that the return on capital investment for an open pit was shorter, but the environmental damage was significantly more than the tunnel. But both options were more than the company wanted to undertake, and again, the claim was sold. Finally, Imperial Metals, a company that specializes in open pit mining, took over the claim, and the tunnel option was abandoned. In comparison with tunnel mining, open pit mines have three problems. The first is the permanent loss of surface and wildlife habitat. Today, land that took hundreds of thousands of years to create can be destroyed with giant excavators in a matter of hours. The second problem is of the sheer activity of open pit mining upon the local inhabitants. 28 years of daily shelf dynamiting, for example, is not conducive to hibernation. But there is a far greater concern than the loss of surface, shelf dynamiting, or just grumpy bears. And that is the effect of the displacement of resident species such as mountain sheep, in particular, ewe lamb units.
One of the reasons understanding this genetic structure is important because it's important to how we manage these populations or these groups of sheep. So if we know that a group of animals on a particular mountain are genetically distinct from the next mountain, and those animals are likely to be genetically well matched to that environment through natural selection over many generations, has led for their genetic material to be well attuned to the environment in which you find them. We call that being locally adapted. If we make a change in that environment, for example, we introduce a mine that maybe forces those animals to move, or when we reclaim the mine, it might make a habitat that actually draws animals in from surrounding areas. It disturbs that genetic structure. So it brings animals that may not be locally adapted to that a new environment in, or vice versa. It forces animals that are locally adapted to move away and to take with them their genetic variants to an environment that maybe is not well suited. So any of those kinds of changes, dramatic changes in habitat, and climate change is one of the big examples of this, which happens across huge areas, of course, is that animals are no longer locally adapted to that environment. The environment changes, they're no longer well matched to it, which may cause them problems in the future. Long-term persistence, long-term viability may be threatened because they now mismatch that environment, which over many millennia they've become locally adapted to. And compounding this is the fact that these changes happen very quickly. Human-induced change happens much more quickly than evolution could ever possibly track.